Hello and welcome to this webinar. My name is Dennis. I'm the representative for Cargo Publisher in Southeast Asia. For today's webinar, we will share information about a tool called DermaCompass, a companion for diagnosis and therapy. Before we start, some housekeeping notices. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available to you, and it will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel at Cargo. During the session, please feel free to type in your questions and in the chat box, and we will address it as much as possible at the very last part of the session. After the session has ended, there will be a survey to be filled in, and also options to receive more information about Cargo and also the tool itself. Some quick facts about Cargo Publisher. Cargo Publisher is a family-owned independent publisher since 1890 in health science that caters to all stakeholders and in healthcare sector. And for today, we're going to just focus on the healthcare professionals as the stakeholder. Once again, welcome everyone, and also to our speaker. Before I introduce our handsome speaker over there, I would like to just a bit about myself. My name is Dennis. I'm the Business Development Manager at Cargo Publisher, based for Southeast Asia, and I'm based in Malaysia. My focus is to serve all stakeholders in the healthcare community with Cargo's wide range of publication and services. Here's our handsome speaker today. Today with me is Joachim Flickinger. He's the head of clinical and patient markets at Cargo Publisher. He is responsible for development and publication of portfolio professionals, medical information for pharmaceutical, for healthcare professionals and patients. And he's particularly interested in information and communication in healthcare and patient centricity. Welcome, Joachim. Would you like to say hello to our audiences?
Sure. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dennis, and good afternoon to our participants. I am happy that you've joined this afternoon to follow us on this short presentation of DermaCompass. And I would say let's start right away with the presentation of the tool.
Yep, sure. So this webinar will be an interview format where I will ask question and you will answer the question accordingly. So let's start with question number one, which is what is DermaCompass and why we use it, and how does this idea come about?
Okay, so DermaCompass is a tool for dermatologists, but also for general practitioners, which helps them diagnosing skin diseases and finding the right treatment. It consists of a web version, which I will be demonstrating in a minute, and also a companion app for the mobile phone, which is available on the App Store, Apple App Store, and also Google Play. There is a difference between the app and the web format, which we will be talking about after the demo, I believe. Because both formats are for different use cases for doctors. The idea sparked, actually not in Cargo. DermaCompass is a platform which we have in a collaboration with another company, Derma1, which is a startup which was funded by Professor Navarini at the University of Basel. He is a dermatologist, a professor in dermatology, and a colleague of his who is a genius in IT, let's say. So they tried to develop also for their younger doctors that are still learning a tool, an online tool, to make it easier for them to find the right diagnosis. When we are going through DermaCompass live, I will mention how dermatologists usually work and why it was a really good idea to develop this tool to make their lives easier.
Okay, that's good information to start with. Since you're talking about the demonstration, can you do it now? That will be the second question. Yeah, so okay. I'll hand the floor to you.
taking over the demonstration, and so you should be able to see DermaCompass now.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is after you have logged in, the start page of DermaCompass. Registration can be done for institutions where you can pass us your IP addresses, or there is different other ways to set up access as well. If you do not have static IP addresses, just get in contact with Dennis if you want to learn about the different ways of signing you up. Individuals can also sign up via username and password, of course. And once you have done this, you land on this starting page. You see here that DermaCompass currently exists in 2 languages. It's now on the English language. It started out 3 or 4 years ago in German, and all of the content is now available in English and German. We are looking into further translations of the complete content. We are thinking about, for example, doing a Chinese translation. This could be a project for this year, but depends on us being able to find partners to realize this, of course. So the start page here is really simple. You have a bit of information here, what DermaCompass is, and just to give you some numbers, DermaCompass contains 317 diagnoses by now. This number will be increasing remarkably during this year. Up to the middle of this year, we're expecting another 300 diagnoses to be added to DermaCompass. Another figure would be that there is 450 differential diagnoses. So a differential diagnosis basically is the comparison of 2 or more possible diagnoses for a disease, and this is the way that dermatologists work. It also contains 160 different therapies for these diagnoses in DermaCompass. And sorry, another very important and very interesting feature is the image gallery we have in DermaCompass, which comprises over 6,000 high-resolution images. And also the number of the images is growing, of course, because with every diagnosis we are adding new images as well. We will see some of these images today. I would like to apologize already. Skin diseases are not the most pretty to look at. I have selected diseases which are not too gruesome to look at, but please bear with me. You will see some pictures that are not so nice, but I will not stay on them for too long. So the structure is really simple of DermaCompass. What you see here in the navigation bar is basically the handbook and the image gallery. The institute and association you can ignore because you just see this because I have an admin account. So as a user, you would see handbook and image gallery. And I would like to start with the handbook feature here to describe the first use case actually for DermaCompass. Users would use the handbook feature if they already had a disease in mind and needed more information. So in the search bar here, you have a live search with autofill. And let's say a user was looking for more information about acne. So we type acne here, and you see that it automatically gives me different types of acne that exist and are also in DermaCompass. And we already know in this case that we are looking for the acne vulgaris. So we type a bit on and we get acne vulgaris here, which is the standard, the normal acne, if you will, that we can find. So then we land on the handbook entry, which is basically a structured piece of content here, which is always the same structure in DermaCompass. So you have the disease name here, you have the date when it was last updated. So in this case, it was updated in October 2021. You have information about the authors. So in this article, for example, there was Professor Navarini working there and Dr. Anzendruber as well, who is a colleague of his. You have the ICD-11 number, that is the official the official registry of diseases. You could even search for a number like that if you had it in mind, but that's not usually the case. In entity described by, you would find reference style information, which is not applicable here, so it's empty. This can be shown and hidden, these sections. A synonym section is also given, so for acne it would be pimples as we normal people know it, so to say. You find a definition, the epidemiology, which is of course very important, the classification of the disease, etiopathogenesis, of course, as well. So this disease is linked to XYZ, for example, nutritional defects, stress, and so on and so forth can cause acne. Clinical features is of course as well important, because doctors need to look up the details about the lesions they see on the skin, and also they need to know which tests to take in one or the other case to make sure the diagnosis is correct. Here you have the diagnose guide actually, which tells you what you have to be careful for when wanting to confirm that this is actually acne vulgaris in this case. Informational localization, this means where on the body do you find the lesions. The disease history, dermatopathology, potential complications of the disease, and so on. And here's another interesting section which I already mentioned, that we have these 160 therapies in DermaCompass. You find a whole section on therapies, and actually acne is a very good example, because you have a very extensive section here on the therapeutic options, coming with the different types of potential or possible therapies, and this nice overview as well, specifying certain cases. And another important thing are the references, which you have on every entry, pointing you to scientific literature about the disease you're looking at. You can see for acne vulgaris we have 29, so quite a long list of references. These are, of course, also updated when the handbook entries are updated themselves. It is important to outline this because the information you find in DermaCompass is not something that Professor Navarini or the editorial team just invented. It is really based on science and scientific articles here. So this underlines the quality of this tool as well. For comparison, of course, everybody can Google about skin diseases online as well, but in many, many cases, if not most of the cases, you do not have references. You never know where exactly the information comes from, how accurate it is, how current it is, for example. So this is an important part. In the future, users will be able to click references and be linked out to the original articles. This is something we are working on in the background. So apart from the text, what you already saw is you have these images of the disease in the upper right corner. This is, in this case of acne vulgaris, a small image gallery of 10 images. You can click through here. You can also click these images to enlarge them, so you have a better view. This is very important for dermatologists because their starting point is always the close look at the skin to find out what this disease could be or the issue. These images are all high resolution, meaning if you download them, you can further enlarge them, which is really important to get a good detail in some cases of diseases. And this is also one reason why we decided to produce the web version, because actually when we started DermaCompass, we started with the mobile app, but the web version, of course, gives us and the users especially the possibility to have a very close look at these high resolution images. Imagine you have a big screen and you open this image and you zoom in, and it still has a very good resolution. That is a very valuable asset for dermatologists to work. So this is basically the handbook part, and as I said, it always looks like this and works like this. You have all of these sections describing the disease, potential therapy, and so on, and the mini image library here on the right-hand side. I'd like to show you the second use case, which is starting at the image gallery level, actually. And here, the use case is a bit different. The use case here would be that a doctor is currently in a session with a patient or after a session with a patient and has certain uncertainties what the disease could actually be, and they start based from what they see, based from an image they have live, of course, on the patient, and now they can describe what they see and try to find images that actually show what they are seeing to get to a diagnosis. To be able to do so, they have to give some parameters. So the first one would be the localization. Here, for example, they could say, do I see the lesion on one or both halves of the body? Are the lesions distributed symmetrically or asymmetrically? Is it an area which is sun exposed, sun protected? And also the general localization, meaning, is this lesion on the ear, on the neck, on the face, on the shoulder, and so on and so forth? So we could, for example, just select the shoulder here. The next field would be the arrangement and distribution of the lesions. Again, some parameters. Is the arrangement localized, meaning just at a certain part of the body? Is it everywhere? Is it again symmetrical or asymmetrical? You have some patterns here which could be represented as well. We're leaving this for the moment blank. Next one is the efflorescence, meaning the type of lesion the doctor might see. This could be a rash, this could be bullae, little pimples, so to say, patches, and so on. It could be a crust, ulcer format, and whatever. They could also choose this. And there is other parameters as well. So for example, the size, because what dermatologists also do is they document the size of a skin lesion. You might know this if you had a melanoma check, for example, in your life, where they look at moles on your skin. They always measure how large the mole is to also determine if it has a critical size or not, if it is growing, to monitor it over time, and so on. So the user can fill in these details, so to say, these parameters, and then search. And the only one I had now was the shoulder here. So I get images where I only see lesions that might happen on the shoulder or other parts of the body. So here the dermatitis one, for example, if I saw this image, and again I can enlarge it, but I have a pop-up blocker, so it doesn't work. I have to go on the entry actually. If I hadn't got a pop-up blocker, it would just have opened. So you would have the possibility to say, yes, this is what I see on my patient, more or less exactly, and then you have a trace already. It could be dermatitis, and the During type actually. You read through to make sure this is that one or not. And if you're not sure, you have this box, which is handy. And this is what I mentioned in the beginning as well. These are potential differential diagnoses here, which from the image and also the description, the impression you might have as a doctor could be similar. And you have them here, and you can go directly to these entries. So there could be the potential risk for the doctor to misdiagnosing dermatitis During for scabies, and to make sure that it is one or the other, or not one or the other, but one of the others listed down here. You can go directly to scabies here, for example, and read on. So that is really the way, starting via the images, but of course the differential diagnosis part is also available and shown on if you start with the handbook section. So this is it basically. Maybe one remark regarding the app, the mobile app. The difference is really you have the handbook part in the app as well, but the differential diagnosis part is different in the app. I can unfortunately not show it to you because I cannot connect the mobile phone to the webinar. In differential diagnosis in the app, you start with the comparison of images actually. So you have the same image filtering modalities we just saw here. You pick the images that most resemble what you see on the patient, and you can then on the screen compare different images. And by that, really coming or getting closer and closer to the actual case you have in your practice, and you would typically end up with 2 or 3 images and link to the images diagnoses that are eligible for the case you are currently treating, then again leading you back to the handbook part where you find information about the tests you should take or possible treatment options, for example. So this is actually all in terms of the live demo. So this was really live. I'm connected to the internet. All you need is a working internet connection, and I am handing back to Dennis.
Right, thank you very much for the demonstration. It is definitely a very interesting tool. Maybe from now, can you just, the next question will be, let's see. The next question will be, could you highlight the key features of DermaCompass and how will it really benefit the audience, the users, and how does it match with other products in the market?
Yeah, so I think maybe other products in the market, there is, of course, there is competition in the market, but what I already mentioned is that you find apps, mobile apps, you find many dermatologic mobile apps which are not clearly designed to be for doctors or for patients, which is problematic per se. Tools that feature differential diagnosis features and also treatment features, especially the treatment features, should not be rolled out to patients lightheartedly. This should be a healthcare professional looking at these platforms. So what I would say is that we make it clear that this is a tool for professionals. This is not for patients. By registering institutions or also doctors, we have a certain type of monitoring the actual audience that should use it. I'm not saying we can guarantee 100% that there will be no patients or general public logging in, but this is just impossible. Nobody can really be 100% sure that the general public accesses these tools. However, this is the reason that we do not have drug names, because this would be problematic from a regulative point of view. So what also has to do with this is what I mentioned when I showed you the references. You can be sure that what is in DermaCompass is based on science. Many tools you find in the web version or in apps online, when you Google them, you do not know who created this tool, where does the information come from, is it current information, and so on. So I would say, compared to many things you just find on the internet, quality and reliability is really much better, of course, with DermaCompass. What I also have to say is it is a very easy to use tool. As you saw, the structure is very clear. The modalities of use are very easy to understand. You can click through and you have a lot of benefit. The information is constantly updated. The updates don't come every year or every half year, but an editorial team is working on the content in the background day to day and doing live updates. So I think that is a big asset which competitors also do not have in every case. Some have it, of course, but not in every case. And the key features, of course, I just can repeat what I told you. You have comprehensive information on the diseases, diagnosis, treatment, and again, especially the immense image library you have, of course, is a great benefit to the target audience. What I will say is maybe a comment to the image library. This image library does not only grow, as I mentioned before, we also are including more and more images of different skin types and colors, which is very important. In the beginning, of course, the images came from Professor Navarini himself, because dermatologists always have a large image stock, which was Central European skin, so to say. So now we're adding more and more dark skin, for example, as well, which makes a huge difference, because diagnosing skin diseases on fair and dark skin can be very difficult. It can be it is different in any case. It can be very difficult, sorry, in some cases. So this is especially where we are adding, let's say, alternatives as well to the images that are already there.
All right. I have here the last question. Besides the differential diagnosis and the images which you can use, you can enlarge in the web version, is there any other differences, and why we have more different versions? What is the advantage over the other one?
Yeah. So you mentioned the technical differences I already mentioned. One other technical difference is that if you download the app, you can use it offline as well. You cannot use the web version offline, so that is a different, of course. But the main reason actually why there are two different formats is different situations of work. So the desktop, the web version, which we just had a look at together, is of course thought for the work in a doctor's office. They have a computer, they can sit down. This can be in preparation to see a patient. It can be after seeing a patient, when a doctor has the time or the need to sit down really and do his research and get a closer look at potential diagnosis in this case. The app was thought more for the use on the ward, for example, so doctors in the hospital being able, when they see a patient in their room, to go out and immediately do a search without having to go back to their office, look for a computer that's free, and so on. So I would say the app is really for the use on the go, and the web version is more for more focused and concentrated work. Of course, in an academic environment, the web version makes a lot of sense, because students would be using DermaCompass predominantly on laptops or desktop PCs. So it is really the situation and the question, where are you? Do you have internet access, which makes the difference?
Yeah, definitely. That definitely makes sense. That's all the question that I have. So now I would like to turn our attention to the questions from the audience. I have the first question here. Probably is this. Could you share a bit about the future of DermaCompass? Is there any other feature that you would like to add to this platform?
Yeah. So what I mentioned already is, of course, the growth of content there. So we are adding many more diagnoses to DermaCompass in the handbook part and also in the image library part. What I also mentioned is different skin colors, which we are integrating now. A second thing is doesn't directly have to do with the content, is we are currently working also on the composition of the editorial board. I told you that Professor Navarini funded this tool and started this tool, and he was collaborating with his team actually at the University Hospital back in the day in Zurich and now in Basel. So part of the authors are actually from his team. The editorial team has been growing, of course, into other places as well. But what we're doing now is we are currently inviting dermatologists, key opinion leaders actually from other regions in the world as well, to collaborate on DermaCompass, to be able to integrate their view on dermatological issues, which can be quite different, of course. I'm especially pointing out tropical skin diseases, for example, which are not common at all in Central Europe, where this tool started. But we need to integrate it, of course, to offer even more benefit to users around the world. I mentioned the issue of dark skin, so we are also looking for collaborators predominantly in Africa right now, and we are adding more editors from that side as well. And the last thing, this is something which we are currently thinking about. It might not come this year, but to add a functionality to DermaCompass, which would be a possibility for the user to scan an image of the skin and have a pre-diagnosis, so to say, a pre-sorting with the help of AI, which is possible because we have this huge number of images which have really good metadata as well. The issue there is that the technology around image recognition in AI is not 100% reliable. You might have read things about the image comparison issues that Google had, for example, where the computer identified an ape to be a human. And you can imagine that on a level that is more granular, so to say, comparing images of the skin, which sometimes are really similar but not the same. AI is not that reliable yet, but the technology is getting better and better. So at a point where we say, or we can say, we are comfortable with the performance of this technology, we will certainly be implementing it as well. You have competitors that already have this feature, but again, we do not think that the technology is reliable enough yet to implement it. And to be very honest, I wouldn't be looking into implementing something which works half well, because I would have the feeling that we would be stealing the user's time actually. So what is there should be working really well and should be reliable, and we wouldn't be adding it just to have something cool, so to say, without it really working well.
Right, that's very interesting. The second question is how often the content is updated?
Yeah, so I mentioned this, it's constantly updated. There is no fixed point in the year when we update. There is certainly a systematic somehow behind it as well. We take care that the handbook entries don't get too old. If there is knowledge about in the expert group, if there is knowledge about a development in a certain disease area, they will see to update the content as soon as possible, so it really stays current and reliable. And it is a 365-day endeavor every year to update this content.
Okay, thanks for the answer. Is it possible to have a trial for DermaCompass, especially for the web version?
Of course, yes. So as I mentioned, the app, you don't need a trial. You can just download it. It's free in the app stores. And the web version, of course, you can have a trial. Just contact Dennis in this case, or you can also, you find a contact button on DermaCompass itself, where you can sign up for a trial. We offer trial of different lengths and make it dependent also of what you need. So the trial, I would say, should be at least a month, so you can test it with your users, you can promote it internally, and a trial can go up to 3 to 6 months. It really depends on the situation you have and what time you think you need to evaluate the use of this tool. It's possible to start at any time.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That's good to know. I think the final question that we have is Um, do notice that just now you talk about the referencing part. Is there any the referencing part? Does it includes other content from different from the internet, or just cargo publishers only?
No, it is not only cargo content, of course. I would say cargo content. I mean, we are quite prominent in dermatology, and we have one of the oldest dermatology journals, scientific journals in the world at Cargo. But as you saw in the references, maybe if you had a moment to look at it, there is a lot of content used to write these handbook entries, which is not from Cargo. So we are not looking to reproduce what we do, but we are looking to cite and use in a scientific way, of course, what is the best fit to describe this disease and its diagnosis and treatment.
All right, thank you. Let me see whether we have any other questions left. I don't see much question. Let's just wait for a while, see when there's any question. In numbers of how many, let me just read directly. In numbers of how many images available in DermaCompass currently, can the images be downloaded to local PC?
Yeah, so I cannot tell you the exact number. It is far over 6,000. I think it's around 6,400 images now. As I mentioned, they're all high resolution, and yes, you can download them on your PC. As I showed you, you can click them to enlarge them, and if you click the right mouse button, you can just say save to PC and save them. What I have to say is you will only be able to download images with the watermark you saw. So the small logo of DermaCompass, which is like a watermark, it doesn't really disturb it. But this is possible, and it is also allowed to use for your own use. And in the case of a university, for example, or a hospital, it is allowed to use it for internal use. You can include it in presentations for your lectures to students, for example. That is all allowed. If you wanted to use it in any commercial way, you would have to come back to us and for the permissions, you would have to pay for a license. In that case, we would also take the watermark away. But I would say the usual use for your colleagues, your students is allowed.
Okay, we just received 2 more questions. One of the question is, what are the resources used in DermaCompass and the authority of them, the authorized usage of those things, those images?
You mean the literature? Is that
the resources in general, and yeah, the literature I can also say.
So it is a colorful mix. The references or the literature used to write these handbook entries. There are other encyclopedia, dermatological ones, but a lot of it is actually directly from scientific journals, as you know them as well, that treat or deliver really current information on the disease that an author of DermaCompass is currently working on. So the contents in DermaCompass, we don't copy text from the originals, of course. It is really writing the content and citing, like in a journal article, for example, citing other works, articles, books as well, and it is really a colorful mix of the most relevant content, but not, I couldn't say there are typical or specific sources or resources we always use. It really depends on the disease and what is most current in this moment.
So we do not have any other question from the audience, but I would like to know whether Cargo will have any plans to develop similar platform for other subjects other than dermatology.
Yes, definitely. I cannot tell you which ones will be next. And of course, what we cannot do is we cannot replicate DermaCompass for any other number of subject areas. Dermatology is special in a way because it works a lot with these images. So a platform like dermatology could be used for certain other subject areas, for example, ophthalmology, where images are very important as well, because a large part of the exams and also the diagnosis is done by looking in the eye, actually. So you have that image part. We have been thinking about starting something in ophthalmology, but we do not have a fixed kickoff date because this would need to be built from scratch, and you need to set up a new group of experts and everything. So that needs a bit more energy. We want to make sure that DermaCompass is done, so to say, up to our standards before we start something new. And then, of course, we have other areas where images are important, like endocrinology, gastroenterology, where you also have lots of images. Could be something interesting to go into. So potentially yes, but there are no fixed plans yet.
All right. So we do not have any other question as of now. So
Okay.
maybe we can conclude this this webinar. With that, this brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you very much for sharing this wonderful tool. If there's any information needed or questions, you can always email me or contact your local representative. Here is my email, d.loh@kaggle.com. So please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, the video will be uploaded into YouTube if you want to refer or share it to other users who are audience who are interested. But please share the video later on. So yeah, we are also on WeChat. So unfortunately, the QR code is not here. But thank you very much, Wahim, for sharing, and thank you all to all the audience for your time. It was a pleasure, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.